Alright, so I'm not gonna lie, this game has me hooked. Enshrouded is an open-world survival crafting RPG that has you purging the world of a deadly shroud as a flameborn. I've been playing quite a bit of this game lately, and I wanted to analyze how it feels in 2025. Actually, a bit over a year since the game was originally released. And to be honest with you, Enshrouded is absolutely breathtaking in 2025. Let's dive in. So with it being an RPG, there is somewhat of a story. However, in this game, it is fairly straightforward. Basically, people dug into the earth for an elixir and accidentally dug too deep, releasing the shroud and terrible creatures into the world. And as the world is going to hell, some of the shroud-resistant warriors, the Flameborn, were locked away into vaults so they can basically pop out when things were safe to rebuild and push back the shroud once again. Essentially, that is it. Now, there are other characters, or I should say crafters, that you get as you are going throughout the world and following along with a lot of these quests. They basically allow you to upgrade and move your character forward through the idea of exploration of this great world. But as far as the story is concerned, that's basically it. Now, you can technically piece some of it together with these little notes and things that you find out in the world while you're exploring. But the only other people that you're finding who aren't dead and trying to unalive you are the crafters, such as the blacksmith, the farmer, the alchemist, the people that you just basically find. You build yourself a little settlement and then you bounce out for exploration. And aside from rooting out all the shroud roots, the story really doesn't add too much as far as a central focus is concerned. You get some of the lore of the Flameborn as you explore, but you are there to de-weed, and that's the story. Now, having said all this, I don't believe that this is a bad thing. Actually, I think this plays very well into the story of Enshrouded. Even though it is an RPG where you would expect there to be some kind of story, it does the open world exploration perfectly. The point of this game is to have a great survival feeling, a great survival exploration feeling, which, given the variability of the different places that you can go and the different routes that you can take, it really does make sense. And the lack of the story, I wouldn't even really put on as a negative. More as something to note that this isn't going to be any kind of riveting tale. It's more about the story that you create. Okay, so with this being a survival crafting game, there is of course a ton of customization and survival capable features. Now, the base setting of the game has only mild survival features, and it really plays a little bit more like an RPG in that regard. But when you customize the world or server that you start, that's where the fun begins. With the game being in early access, it is only going to get better. Recently, they've added the starvation mode, where you have to eat something every so often or you'll die, to losing all of your items, including equipped items, on death, as well as sliders for everything from player health to monster density. You can even adjust the worlds to have perpetual darkness, all at your fingertips. In my opinion, they do an excellent job of providing all of the challenge that you could seriously want as far as survival is concerned. Personally, I've really been enjoying just the simple scaled difficulty, the harder difficulty. And honestly, looking at all the different things that you can do, I've considered doing a challenge run or two where the mobs are super tuned high and I can only go out when it's nighttime. I mean, I thought that that could be a lot of fun. I will be honest, I don't have a ton of experience with survival games, and but for me, just getting into this game genre, I think it is really an excellent game and offers a ton of different options for those who were just getting into it, as well as customization for those who were familiar with survival crafting. Now, the combat in Enshrouded is of course pretty good. However, it does have its flaws. Starting out, you have a variety of different weapons that you can use, from swords to maces, axes, bows, wands, staves, shields, two-handed maces, and more. Each one of the weapons have a lot of specific values that work better against specific targets. For example, skeletons may take more damage against blunt weapons versus cutting weapons. And there is some variability there and strategic planning that will be needed if you want to be the most effective. However, most attacks really just swing with the same 3 to 4 swings, and it really doesn't provide any other different types of animations or combinations in that regard. Now, the combat does offer a little bit of depth when you talk about the side features that are included, such as dodge rolling that eats up a bit of your stamina but moves you out of the way, or one of its newer features where you can parry attacks while the enemy is swinging, which honestly just adds a whole bunch to the skill ceiling. If you parry enough attacks, it will stun the enemy and allows you to be able to use a merciless attack if you build into it, where you just deal massive damage. It's like a little cinematic attack that you get to do. But that's also where your build choices come into play. You have a skill tree, and the main way that you build up this tree is by removing removing the Shroud root. Each time that you do, you are granted 1 skill point, which allows you to allocate and unlock certain abilities, like Merciless Attack, or even the Leap Attack, where if you are jumping in the air and then use your attack, you'll slam into the ground, dealing area of effect to everyone around you. That's where a lot of the customization comes from, but as you progress, most of the bosses and enemies really end up having the same or similar attack patterns, and unfortunately it becomes fairly predictable, which can be unexciting at times. Having said all this, what is really needed to be stated is how important this all plays into grouped content. The game allows for up to a staggering 16 players, and to my knowledge, the game adjusts difficulty as you add more players, but it certainly can be a great time to have a whole bunch of other people who are playing with you, as well as tuning your build to fit into your group role. All right, so for any good survival crafting, there is usually some type of base building or building aspect in general. And I have to talk about possibly the most unintended, wonderful things that happen to this game, which is how beautifully intricate their building is. The game has such an immensely deep building system that really just needs to be studied for future games. You can damn near build anywhere in Enshrouded, from massively deep caves to mountain peaks, or even taking over ruined buildings that you can use for your own personal hideaway. Point being is that you have such a freedom that this game offers you, and it's exactly what you would expect from a full sandbox survival crafting game. The first time I played Enshrouded, I probably spent about 20 hours just building a massive tower fortress, and it was incredible. I would 100% do it again. And that's not even talking about the best part. The more that you dig out into the wilds and explore the different places, the different types of building materials that you will find, allowing you to build even crazier buildings and immense designs. The developers keep adding more and more features to the building aspect, amongst other aspects in the game, of course. And before you know it, the game is basically 2 games in one, the RPG or the building. It's both an open world survival crafting game and a building simulator. Now, with it being in early access at the time of recording, it does not have a full-on creative mode like Minecraft, for example, but I have heard rumors that it eventually will be coming with a 1.0 release, so stay tuned. Lastly, my favorite part of this game is the exploration. I cannot get enough of the exploration in Enshrouded. Literally just going out there and exploring all the different nooks and crannies in this massive world. It really does bring a certain level of charm to the idea of adventure. Now, to be honest, the maps are not randomly generated. The map is handcrafted, so the game replayability goes down a bit, but this does allow for some hyper-realistic and creative designs that are not just randomly spit out. I cannot tell you how many times I simply wandered out into the open world just to see what I can find. Oh, hey, look, there's a really cool tower. Let's go and see if we can climb it. Oh, there appears to be a cave over there. Let me go in there and fight these guys. And oh, hey, cool, I found a chest. Point being is that there are so many different areas in this game that you really get paid out more when you just say, huh, let's go and check this out. So in 2025, is Enshrouded worth playing? Absolutely. I've basically been playing this game since it launched, and I have never been disappointed with how the gameplay or the features felt. Each time I log in, I felt this sense of curiosity that wanted me to dig deeper into the game. I wanted to find out more about the world and see what it had to offer. The graphics really do a great job of adding just the right touch of realism, but keeping it fiction. I don't feel like I'm playing like a hyper-realistic Final Fantasy game or anything of that, and I kind of enjoy the almost slightly cartoony world in the frame of a survival game. I found the base game to be lackluster on survival aspects, but when you are able to create your own custom world and tune it to that feature, the real gloves come off and it becomes a challenge, which is excellent. Now, there are some short sights, such as the combat being a little bit mundane at times, or in my opinion, the mobs being unfair with some of their damage, but I can chalk that mostly up to a skill issue, nothing more. Now, given that the game is still in early access and 1.0 is on the horizon, it is important to note that there's a lot of development still on its way. What I'd also like to mention is how they've shared the entire roadmap of what features and additions they like to make to the game for this year and beyond. So even if you want to beat the game and come back later, there will more likely than not be something new for you to try out. All in all, 100% recommend Enshrouded in 2025. Now, I've also recently touched into some of Lord of the Rings Online, a fairly famous RPG, and you can see that video here, because it was just absolutely incredible. As always, stay caffeinated, folks.